Stewart gets in, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown!
Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Believe in Carolina Panthers here on Believe Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.
Do you believe?
And welcome into a brand new edition of Believe in Panthers Free Agency Edition here on the Believe Podcast Networks, exclusively on the Believe YouTube channel. You can catch the audio a little bit later on today. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by the Panthers' all-time leading rusher, Jonathan Stewart. Did speak to Skylar Callahan earlier this morning. He's still doing the newborn baby thing, living life with his beautiful family. He may be joining us back here in a couple of weeks when we start our exclusive draft coverage. Before we get into everything, quick word from our sponsors over at Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game betting, live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to Bet Online today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. And where we start today, before we get into anything else, we've been off for a couple of weeks, some Panthers news and notes just to get you guys caught up. Really, it's the first offseason, Stu, in about really ever since I started hosting the show where there was nothing really going on with the Panthers during this dead period. There wasn't a new head coach. There wasn't a trade up in the draft. There wasn't a new GM or anything like that. So it's been pretty quiet, which has been pretty nice. We've been able to actually take a break for a couple of weeks. But a couple of weeks back, the Panthers did buy themselves a little bit more time in terms of signing center Austin Corbett. They pushed his void deadline to March 11th, which would be next week. That agreement allows them more time to negotiate with the soon-to-be free agent and reach a pact ahead of the 2025 campaign. He signed a 3-year deal when he first arrived. If they can't do it before March 12th, which is the start of the new league year, the Panthers will take a dead cap hit of about $7.7 million. If they can settle on a fresh agreement, Carolina would not incur as large of a knot. Corbett joined on a 3-year, $26.2 million deal in 2022, but he's had a lot of injuries. He's only played in 26 out of a possible 51 games for Carolina, so we'll keep an eye on that. The big news from around the NFL that we saw, I guess yesterday is when it happened. Saquon Barkley, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, possibly the best running back in the league currently right now, resets the market with a brand new deal. The Eagles are basically rewarding him for his historic season. 2 years, $41.2 million, makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history. The deal includes a $36 million guaranteed at signing, making Barkley the NFL's first running back getting more than $20 million per year. He has the ability to earn an additional $15 million in incentives and escalators. For starters, let's start with that because you have been one of the biggest cheerleaders for Saquon Barkley since the start of the season, Stu, and being a former running back yourself and seeing the kind of money that he was able to command from the Eagles for a job well done. You don't see that a lot in the NFL where players get paid after they've done something. Usually they get paid off of potential and not what they just did. But this feels like this was a reward for the past season. Thoughts on when you saw this deal and thoughts on the running back position in general?
Man, finally is what I have to say about that. Right? We're getting back to football. We're getting back to why this game is so special. We talked about the running back position maybe a year ago when all this was kind of going sideways and people were saying, oh, the running back position isn't that important. Well, guess what? You know what's really exciting is watching a man take on 11 individuals sometimes and making people miss, right? The objective of scoring with the ball in your hand, right? If you're a receiver, it's more exciting watching what you do when the ball is in your hand. Yeah, when you run your routes and you break a guy off, we're not really watching you unless the ball is thrown to you. Once you get the ball in your hand and you're doing things like, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham. I'm trying to think. Chase for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase. Guys when they have the ball in their hand and they're making guys miss, running guys over, stiff arming, spin moves, jumping over people. That's what people like to see. That's what's entertaining. You know what I'm saying? So it's about time that we got back to the basics, being physical, getting an offensive line in front of you that makes things exciting. It's exciting to see Saquon Barkley run the ball. It was exciting seeing him run the ball for the New York Football Giants. And we thought he was great then. You put him on the Philadelphia Eagles with an offensive line that can actually create running lanes for you. Now, Saquon Barkley is something that we've never seen before, absolutely never seen before. This was a season at the running back position that took things to another level offensively. It's a copycat league. I can guarantee you every GM right now is looking at how can we find ourselves an offensive line like the Philadelphia Eagles. Because once you find that, now you can get a little bit more creative with your spending to create room for a running back, such as a guy like Saquon Barkley. I mean, he has 2,000 plus rushing yards this year. He's a Super Bowl champion, offensive player of the year, and he's a good teammate.
Yeah.
Good family man, good role model. This is a guy that you not only win on the field, but you win off the field. Okay, so this is someone that you absolutely build a franchise, with the perfect franchise model. But guess what? Derrick Henry. If I'm Derrick Henry, I'm like, hey, look,
Ravens.
My keys too. Henry had 1,900 yards this year.
10
touchdowns.
With less help.
Something I saw everybody talking about the tush push the other day.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't like the tush push is because, I like it because it gets the job done. But as a running back, Saquon Barkley is the MVP of the league because he's going to have 30 plus yards. He's going to have 30 plus rushing touchdowns if you just hand the ball off to him.
Yeah, it looks like it hurts. Like the tush push looks like it's not fun for anybody. When they do it, it's like, oh, we gotta do the tush. All right, fine. And then they're just basically shoving men into other men, and it's just a huge mess. But I saw some places on the outlawed or whatever, but I don't think they can do that. So,
but it's a fun time to be a running back. If you're a kid that's going into the draft, if you're on the free agency market, this is beautiful news to you because now you understand that the NFL is a copycat league, and they're going to put running the ball being, something that's important to address, right, for each team, because it's proof in the pudding. You run the ball, play action, you have a quarterback that can deliver, you have some weapons on the outside, X and Z, and you have a defense that can stop people from scoring. And basically it's a pass rush, right, mixed with great back end coverage, right? So I look at a guy like Christian McCaffrey. He was making $19 million, right? Shoot, when he get back next year, you're gonna have to pay him again because he's coming with a vengeance. He's sitting there. Listen, like Saquon Barkley, I've been saying this. Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey are generational talents, Derrick Henry included. Not excluding him. But when you talk about cats that can do everything, catch the ball, Swiss Army knife, that's what you want when you got a guy in the backfield with an offensive line like the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, don't forget about James Cook either. James Cook had 15 touchdowns. If I'm him, I'm knocking on the door too. I'm calling my agent like, hey, look, so if he got 20 million a year, what does that mean? What can I get?
Am I 15? Am I 14? Where am I? And this reminds me of a conversation I was having with a Panther content creator on Twitter probably like 2 months ago. The season was still going on, and it was after the Heisman. And Ashton Jeanty won the award, and I was like, how bad would it be if the Panthers kicked the tires on Jeanty at 8 or whatever, or traded down to 12 and got him, or whatever it might be, and just got attacked like for the idea of picking a running back in the top 10. And I'm like, if you look at these running backs that just the ones we just talked about, Barkley, McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, they're all top 10 drafted running backs. Like, yes, you can get a running back in the second or third or fourth round, but you're going to get a second or third or fourth round running back. Like, that's what you're going to get. Now, you might get lucky and get a situation where, you find a guy that's a Isaiah Pacheco or something like that, that's behind a good offensive line and a good offensive play caller and puts him in the right positions, and they take advantage of their situation.
We saw what happened when their offensive line started struggling, though, right?
Right, exactly. But see, you can put a Saquon Barkley behind he don't want it, but you can put him behind a bad offensive line. He's still gonna get you yards.
And he's gonna get the job done.
Yeah, or we saw it Christian McCaffrey. Like, we saw it with you at times where you're still going to get yards, like even if the line ain't the best it could possibly be. And what you're
talking about is you're talking about a guy that can make things happen. Right?
Yes,
not a hole runner. We don't want hole runners. We want guys that can run the ball.
You can see
daylight. They can see it when it's not there. Right.
Usually those guys get picked in the first round, and I feel like there's a stigma now at running backs where you can't pick a running back in the first round and build around him. I'm old school. I'm from the Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Eric Dickerson era where like you built around the running back. Like you had a workhorse running back that was going to run it 25 to 30 times a game and get you 1,500 plus yards. And you built everything from the inside out, the offensive line, the running back, and the run game. Whatever else came after that was basically cherry on top. But now it's like outside in, and like, it's funny because the teams that have been the most successful over the past couple of years have been the ones that have been at the top of the league in offense and defense, especially running the ball and stopping the run. We say it all the time on this show. That's never going to go out of style, no matter what level of football you play. If you can stop the run and run the ball, you're going to win more games than you lose. And people overthink it, I think, sometimes too. So Saquon getting that huge deal, first running back in NFL history to go over $20 million a year. And I like the fact that it's a shorter deal. It's 2 years, so he can go back in there right after in his prime. Instead of getting like this long 6-year deal where it's all stretched out and you get the money the first 2 years, but he's still with the team for another 4. I like how they did this. So it's actually beneficial to Saquon and the Eagles in terms of their salary cap. So good thing for that. The other thing that's out there right now, the Jets basically told Aaron Rodgers, we will no longer be needing your services here in Gotham. So he's going to be a free agent. I saw yesterday they let Devontae Adams go and save like $26 million or whatever. So he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And I think it was Randall Cobb or somebody else was attached to Aaron Rodgers in New York that they let go too. So they're cleaning house of the Aaron Rodgers era in New York. Where, just off the top of your head, where would be the best place for Aaron Rodgers to land with the way the NFL is today? Aaron, he's not the Aaron Rodgers of 7 years ago. I mean,
he's not, but I'll give you this. He had a pretty good season last year, despite what everybody wants to think, right? Yeah. You're taking his stat line over probably a third of the league, right? So I think the best landing spot for Aaron Rodgers, Aaron, would be either Pittsburgh or Las Vegas. Pittsburgh is a vibe. Coach Tomlin, I think that could be a synergy if he's willing to take on a guy like Aaron. I call him Aaron. That's
I was going to say Aaron. Aaron.
But, it's all up to what they're going to do with Russell Wilson, right? I don't think you're going to have two vets like that. Got two guys that have been proven in this league in the same quarterback room.
Who would you rather have if you're Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers? Because they both bring a different set of like issues, but they also bring a different set of like if it goes well, like
I think it's more so they got to figure out what they're gonna do as far as the weapons, right? They need weapons. They need guys that they're gonna absolutely throw to, and can depend on. And I think right now they got to figure out their run game. I think they have to figure out who's going to be in the running back room going into this season. And we know that they've been a defensively, solid team throughout their years.
Yeah.
And so now they got to just figure out what they're going to be identity-wise on offense. That's been their struggle for the last several years. Offensively, we don't know who you are. And bringing a guy in like Aaron Rodgers, you can build around that, right? And I think they actually have the money to do so. Am I correct?
I think they do. Yeah, I mean, they didn't spend money on quarterback last year, so
yeah. So I think they have the money to to figure out some things. And but I mean, Russell Wilson, he had a strong showing last year, so it would be kind of jacked up, to just say, hey man, thanks for all you did last year. It was almost good enough.
Yeah,
we can have you stick around, and we can give you some weapons to help you, succeed even more this year. But instead, we're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers. That could be kind of weird. But we've seen weird things happen in the NFL. I think the Las Vegas Raiders is very interesting because
Pete Carroll. That would be.
And
see, I always thought Russell Wilson would end up there.
And Chip Kelly.
Oh, that's right. They did hire Chip Kelly.
You have an offensive mind that I would love to see what Aaron Rodgers and Chip Kelly can do in a room.
Is Josh Jacobs still the running back with the Raiders?
He's with the Green Bay Packers.
That's right. Who's the running back? They have a running back.
They have a pretty good running back.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is now, but and then they've got some pieces. Max Crosby still on the defense. I mean, there's some things there.
Amir Abdullah.
Abdullah.
Yeah, he did a good job last year.
Yeah. I like the Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers just seems like peanut butter and ketchup. Like it just don't.
Yeah.
Don't mix.
They're good themselves. Have you ever had it? Peanut butter and ketchup? It might taste good if you're hungry. But I think the Raiders is an absolute makes sense type of move. But you know what? Common sense ain't common. So,
I mean, there's also the idea of retirement. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what else can you? It's almost like now it'd be different if it was like a situation like LeBron James is in right now, where it felt like he was coasting for a little bit first part of the season,
and then he just turned it on.
Now all of a sudden you're 2 seed in the West. They're like, "Yo, we might be able to win a championship."
Man, I just got an extra boost of Kool-Aid all of a sudden.
They're doing triple doubles at age 40 and just like having fun. That could be if Aaron got in the right spot. But I'm trying to think of what team is a quarterback away from doing that, and I think of like the Rams maybe, but that Matthew Stafford's coming back, that kind of's gone. Dallas maybe, if Dak's not fully healthy, would they kick the tires on an old Aaron Rodgers and go from there?
I don't think they got to figure out what they're going to do with Dak Prescott. That's too much money that he's about to make.
That's a lot of money.
If Dak want to make sure he gets to the Super Bowl and he got to figure it out. Okay?
I'm seeing JT attached to them at 12.
That'd be nice.
And I'm like, oh, so it's cool for Dallas to draft him at 12, but it would be stupid for us to do it at 8. Like, I don't. We'll get to the draft stuff in a week or so. Like, again, we figured it was kind of pointless to talk draft stuff and who the Panthers should draft when free agency now comes before the draft. So before, a lot of teams would reach in the draft, not knowing what they're going to get in free agency and pick some players that may not have been a good fit for the team. It does feel like the past couple of years, teams are drafting best player available because they handled a lot of needs in free agency before the draft even got here. So I do like that they moved this around. And we did have it where we were talking about with the Panthers, what do they need before we get into the actual guys that are going to be available? Should the Panthers sign a free agent wide receiver or cornerback? I've seen a lot of people attach wide receivers to us at the number 8 pick. I've seen a lot of people attach us to what's the cornerback's name from Michigan? Is it Will Anderson?
Yeah.
I've seen him getting attached to us at 8, which is intriguing to me. You pair him with J.C. Horn, you put together a backfield like that. That's intriguing to me too. And we'll probably get into like the defensive end and stuff like that as well. But I wanted to focus on those 2 positions because it feels like either we need to get a weapon for Bryce or we need to get a weapon for Ejiro, who we basically kind of put out there butt naked last year with no help at all. And now it's kind of payback time to help him get some talent over there. The wide receivers that are going to be out there. Number one was T. Higgins, but he just got tagged by the Bengals. How do you feel about that? He got tagged twice. So this is the second time in a row he got tagged. Is that something? It feels like players aren't cool with that because it kind of restricts what you can do.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Higgins getting tagged for the second time with the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, a guy like him who obviously if he's on another team, he's number one, right? And that's the argument here. But I mean, you want longevity with your contract. And so that's the reason why it's, the uncertainty of you making it through this season healthy, that's a stressor for a lot of guys, right? And so you get hurt and you're tagged, they don't have to bring you back. So that's what sucks about it. But you just put it in God's hands, man. That's really kind of the thought process there. But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you better be doing all that you possibly can to make that franchise tag work out for you and do the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that the Bengals cannot figure out, but they have too much heat on that offense to just be going belly up.
Pay this dude. Pay. It never works out when these teams wait to pay these players. They always pay more than what they wanted to. Like, I can't think of a situation where a team waited it out, stalled the negotiations, and then got the player cheaper than what they wanted when they first started.
It's always going to be more expensive, man.
It's always
Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is up this year too, ain't it?
Next year. Next year, I believe it's next year. I'm looking at he was rated. So Higgins was rated the number one wide receiver free agent, and let me give you these three names, and with any of these three names be names you kick the tire on for Carolina in order to put him with Bryce and company. Number two, they have ranked, and this is PFF.com. Number two, Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay, experience in Canales offense.
Coming off of an injury, but if he's healthy, that's a guy.
Amari Cooper, Buffalo Bills. He's only 30.
He's got some tread on his tires, though. He's 30, but he's got some tread, and he was kind of banged up there when he was with the Browns.
Yeah, he's one of those names that kind of gets passed around. I'm like, how did he ever get out of Dallas's hands? He was in Dallas for like a year or two, and then got traded away. And I'm like, why did they trade Amari Cooper away? It just didn't make sense to me. And then Stephon Diggs, Houston Texans. He's going to be a free agent too.
It'd be interesting because him leaving the Bills and the Bills getting better. And that whole situation with Josh Allen, to me that screams like, are you a locker room guy? I don't know him personally, but it's just one of those things where if I'm a scout, I'm a GM, that's one of the things that I'm looking at. And obviously he got hurt last year, and so he's got to recover. And we know he's working his tail off to get back and be competitive again. So that's just something that has a little bit more time that you have to dissect that a little bit more. And if you want to dissect it, then go ahead. But if I'm trying to figure out, the easier move, it'd be Godwin, in my opinion, if you're looking at a free agency wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, because there's the relationship there with Canales there, and I just feel like he's one of those guys that's an absolute team player. The way he plays, he goes for every ball, and he seems to be open a lot. So
it's crazy too that with those three, that the Panthers are actually in a position to maybe grab one of them. Godwin just seems like hand in a glove type fit for this offense in terms of age, familiarity with. I mean, Brad Isaac's still did I say it right? The offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator. He's familiar with all of them. They all came from Tampa, so he might be more inclined to sign here because of the familiarity. And it's a divisional opponent, so you kind of, if you're going to leave Tampa, I imagine you probably want to play against them a couple times if they're not going to, re-sign you. I can understand that logic too. So he's the first one I'm looking at. Like, okay, Godwin might be one that would actually work out. And then if you sign somebody like Chris Godwin, you don't need to draft a wide receiver in the first round. You can actually shift your focus to other things on the team, other wide receivers available. A name that keeps popping up that I'm interested in, but he might be. You just mentioned Trent on his hires. Keenan Allen in Chicago. He played high school ball here in the Triad. He played for Northern Guilford and Northern Greensboro.
And you got a house here too.
Yeah, and then he went to Cal for college, and he's still in the area. He's 32, so he'd be younger than, say, Adam Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
But he did. I will admit he did look a step slower last year, which is probably why he's about to be a free agent. But he could be that veteran guy that you bring in. So, I mean, if this more than likely is going to be Thielen's last season, I would think he could be that veteran guy that kind of takes that mantle after Thielen goes. And who knows, he might get refreshed playing in his home state and playing for, family and whatnot here in this area. But Keenan Allen's a name I keep seeing pop up that I could see them signing him to a team-friendly deal, 2-year deal or something, just to bring in some reinforcements on the wide receiver side. I could easily see that happen. On the other side of the ball, though, for cornerback, I'm looking at this list that I pulled up. They've got DJ Reed from the Jets as the number 1 rated cornerback. He's 28 years old. Some of these other names that popped up, though, I was kind of surprised. Rasul Douglas, Buffalo, Kendall Fuller from Miami. Stephon Gilmore is going to be a free agent, but he's 34. I don't know if that ship might have sailed in terms of him coming back here. Although you never know.
It might not have.
Yeah.
If he wants to play again and he's still moving. Boy, listen. When you have a guy that's an all-pro, you don't overlook a guy like that. Period. I don't care how old you are. That he brings value to whatever situation that he decides and teams decide. But I wouldn't just say, "Oh, that ship sailed," because again, it's the NFL. Anything's possible.
And you know what? Saying that out loud, that might be the Peanut Tillman type of signing that they do. He's familiar. He was here before. He has a house in Rock Hill, if I'm not mistaken. He's from that area. It would kind of maybe make sense for him to come back and finish career here with a team on the rise. Stephon Gilmore might be a name to look out for. Again, he's 34. He's only going to be it's probably going to be his last squad, I would imagine. But that's a name. The name that stood out to me was number 10 on this list, Asante Samuel Jr. from the Chargers. He is 25 years old. He was a top 20 draft pick just like 3 years ago. And it doesn't look like the Chargers are going to re-sign him. He's going to be unrestricted. That's a name that I would look at for Carolina to really focus in on. And then some familiar names. Dante Jackson's on this list. He's 29. Mike Jackson's an unrestricted free agent for Carolina. I thought they liked him. I thought they were going to bring him back. So we might need to keep an eye on whether or not they bring Mike Jackson back. Shaquille Griffin, Tre'Davious White with the Ravens. But those names in particular, Asante Samuel Jr. is the number 1 guy that I'm looking at. Like, we should target him. Stephon Gilmore, after saying it out loud and talking to you about it, that might actually be more reality than I gave it credit for when I first saw this list, because I was just like, oh, well, he's 34, blah, blah, blah. That might actually be perfect. They might actually need that kind of veteran leadership in the back of that defense for cheap, because it's going to be cheaper than what it would have been 2 years ago when he was trying to get an extension.
Yeah, it could make sense, but it could be hard to leave Dallas. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, the financial situation in Dallas is monumental.
Yeah, it is. So I mean, and this is probably gonna be if it's your last contract, kind of want to get as much as you can, but you also probably want to be on a winner or go someplace where you can play deep into January.
But I'll say this
here, but
as much as we all hit on the Dallas Cowboys are not that far off, because we saw that Dallas defense go through some things last year. And when you go through a fire, it's a good thing if you come out and you learn something. And so, again, they are kind of like the Philadelphia Eagles last year, when people were like calling for the heads of the Philadelphia Eagles when they went 10-6,
10-1, and then they lost like the last month of the year.
Yeah, they lost. Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, what happened? They just fell apart." And so, obviously, the Cowboys, they lost Dak Prescott. You lost your quarterback.
Yeah,
you don't have a running game. So, you find a running game. You bring Dak back. It's a different team.
Actually, either Genty or Omarion Hampton from North Carolina.
But more importantly, let's keep the main thing the main thing. You are not as good as you think you are without a solid offensive line.
Yes, that is the key to all of this.
Yeah.
Look what happened for us. We were floundering for 3 years because we couldn't get our offensive line straight. The very first thing Canales and company did when they got here last year at this time was fix the offensive line in free agency, and it stabilized the franchise. Like, I mean, it literally stabilized it. So it's important. It's
Need the offensive line in check, because otherwise you're going to have a great running back in the garage.
Right. Yeah. What good does that do?
Right. You got to have the offensive line able to pull that garage open, because it's a manual garage, man. It's not an automatic. So manual, you gotta pull that thing up.
So I wanted to ask you before we went to the top three. I pulled the top 3 Panthers free agent signings of all time and see if you agree with them. Before we get to that, you spent a lot of your career with Carolina. You saw free agents come and go over the course of the time you were there. You were drafted first rounder for the Carolina Panthers. Off the top of your head, who's the free agent that first comes to mind that came in that made such an immediate impact on the team that he comes to mind when you think of top free agents during your tenure with Carolina? Who would that guy be? Because I have a couple in my head that I'm wondering if you're going to touch on.
This fella had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. First tight end to ever do that in NFL history. And he goes by the name of Coach Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, wait, was Greg a free agent or did he get traded to Carolina?
I
thought the Bears traded him.
Did he trade? Was he traded?
I think he was. I think he got traded, and it was crazy. He got traded for like a 3rd round pick or something.
Okay, so he was traded. Absolutely. So
you got some more.
Everybody swoop that over the rug. Sorry, Greg, I messed that up. But you were absolutely traded, and that was probably
but still big impact player.
It was very big impact. Let's see, man.
I gotta give a couple just off 2015. But
a guy that I'm thinking of. Okay. Michael Orr.
Ooh, okay. Now we cooking.
Because we're talking offensive line. We just coming off of offensive line. I'm thinking Michael Orr.
Now he came in
blindside, right?
He came in what, like 07, 08, something like that? Or
we signed him in 2015.
Oh, he was on the line. Okay, he was on that team. Yeah, he was the left tackle on that team. So much later. Yep. Okay. All right, I got you.
So guy that we wanted to bring in that, protect the quarterback and obviously be an impact, in the running game. Big Mike Orr, man, he was not full of a lot of words, but he was full of a lot of talent, and he was putting bodies on their back. Okay. Yeah, and so that's what I think, and obviously him being at Baltimore and his time there, just being such a guy that, that led the way, in my opinion, up front, and being on a championship team and bringing that type of work ethic to the locker room and to that offensive line room, paired with Ryan Khalil and the other guys, and missing Jordan Gross was something that we felt the impact. We felt that hugely when he retired, and getting Michael Orr into the mix was a nice deal. And then I'll say Kurt Coleman. Kurt Coleman was a huge one, right? He was critical in what we did, in the 2015 season, going to the Super Bowl, the playmaker that he had been that year, his leadership, his toughness in the secondary. He was just always around the ball. Always, I think he had like 6 or 7 interceptions.
He had a year
in his first season.
Yeah.
And then I would say Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn, we signed him twice, once in 2013 and once in 2015. He was a huge impact as far as a deep threat. We're talking about guys that can spread the field, giving me, a better chance of finding holes and giving our offensive line a better chance of getting to the second, the secondary up, to the second level. Being able to spread the field is huge, and I'm pretty sure Greg as well felt his presence. So Those are the guys that I'm thinking of right now.
Those are all great. Those are great ones. Some of those, like Kirk Coleman, I hadn't even thought of. I thought, excuse me, from that 2015 team alone, Jared Allen, Peanut Tillman, who we already mentioned earlier in this episode, they took that defense, which was already pretty good to begin with. I mean, you're talking Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, and those boys, Starla Tulele, but they took that squad and added some veteran leadership to it and taught them how to do some stuff they weren't doing before.
Yeah,
and
Peanut Tillman.
Peanut
Tillman transformed the whole entire secondary of the league. The Peanut Punch. So he might be the most impactful secondary, in the last 20 years for sure.
People still do that. Like I was watching during the playoffs, watching men do that to folks as they were trying to pop the ball out and get upfield with it. And I was like, that's the Peanut Punch. Like every time I would see it, like it's kind of like known for that now. So those are the two. But the ones I went to Panthers Wire to pull this, and these are the 6 best free agent signings in Panthers history. And I'm only gonna do the top 3. Number 3, John Casey. 16 years with the team from 95 to 2010. He made 82% of his field goal tries with the Panthers and 97.9% of his extra point attempts. He was a second team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler in 96 when we got to the NFC Championship game. He's the leading scorer in Panthers history. He's got twice as many points as the second place person, which is Graham Gano. And until 2 years ago, he played the most games in franchise history as well. I think who's our long snapper? John Jansen. I think he broke it this past year. So that's the first one. And I know John Casey, there's a weird relationship with Panther fans and John Casey in terms of him kicking the ball out of bounds in the Super Bowl and they blame him, yada, yada, yada. I'm over that now. Like I was one of those. I was one of those as a mad fan. I was like, oh, why'd you kick that ball out of bounds? Looking back on it, I can't even blame. Learning one play doesn't lose the football game. You still got to stop. And it was one of those things. But John Casey should be a beloved Panther, and hopefully, as more time goes by, more Panther fans will remember what he did for this franchise. Number 2, Jake Delhomme, quarterback. Came from the Saints, signed with us in 2003. I still remember Rodney Peete was the starter of the regular season opener. I can't remember who they were playing. And John Fox benched him at halftime, put Jake Delhomme in, and we were off and running on this roller coaster for the rest of the year. The term cardiac cats comes from that 2003 team. He started those 15 games, won an NFC South title, made it Super Bowl 38, lost to the Tom Brady Patriots, threw for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. And if I'm not mistaken, Jake still has the longest Super Bowl touchdown pass in NFL history to Moose Muhammad in that game. It's like a 98-yard
Moose Muhammad.
So when I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton a couple of years ago, it's in there. Like it's in the Hall of Fame. So he threw for over 19,000 yards with us, 120 scores, and had 89 interceptions. He finished his career as the franchise's all-time leading passer. But number 1, probably shouldn't be a surprise to Panther fans. He's got a statue outside of the stadium. Sam Mills played in the USFL, 9 years with the Saints, signed a 2-year deal with the Panthers as an expansion team. He actually finished 3rd in AP Defensive Player of the Year voting in 95 and 4th in 96. Came back in 97, had 99 tackles, an interception over 16 games. And then, of course, became a coach with the Panthers, a defensive assistant in 98. His keep pounding speech is basically, it is the motto of the Panthers franchise when he had been diagnosed with intestinal cancer and was still coaching the franchise to Super Bowl 38 and helping them get there. And it's the battle cry for the franchise to this day. So those, in the opinion of Panthers Wire, are the top 3 free agents in Panthers history. Sam Mills, number 1, Jake Delhomme, number 2, John Casey, number 3. I don't really have any arguments with any of those 3. I couldn't think of anybody else.
Either. I would add Stephen Davis.
Oh, yes. I was thinking about that this morning when I was laying. I was like, who would I put on there? Stephen Davis.
I think Stephen Davis, the ground and pound of his contributions led them to a Super Bowl appearance, their very first Super Bowl appearance. And then I would add Kevin Green, right?
He was another one. Yeah, he wasn't here very long. But when he was here, he was a problem.
14 and a half sacks.
Yeah, he was a serious problem when he was here.
It was probably like, whoa, what? That's crazy. That's what that looks like.
Hey, Giro probably was like, we need a Kevin Green for my 3-4 defense. Like, if I had a Kevin Green on one end, we could rule the world. So, like, yeah, that's one too. Both of those. It's funny you mentioned that. Stephen Davis transformed the Panthers running game along with Deshaun Foster and led them to
ground and pound.
Yeah, Carolina Panthers. And really, honestly, that was probably the first, like, because that was what, 03? That might have been the first like tandem of running backs. Like, it kind of shifted the thought of having more than one, like, instead of having a workhorse back, having like a platoon. Davis and Foster and the success they had, and then right behind that, you and D Will taking that to another level. Like, I think it kind of changed the view of the NFL in terms of we can do that. But again, you and D Will were both first round picks.
Yeah.
There's a difference. You can't just throw 2 5th rounders back there and be like, yeah, we're going to have them run for 3,000 yards and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not exactly how it works.
Those days are transforming, man, because the offensive line and defensive lines are getting bigger, stronger, and faster.
Yo, you remember that episode we did last year around this time where you were running through the 40 times of the defensive ends? And like, we were just,
yeah,
like,
it's crazy. Listen, there was a D lineman or a linebacker, whoever you want to call him, a 3-4 guy, but he's running he ran a time faster than me.
Yeah.
It was like 4.47 or something like that.
What's going on? What are they eating?
Man, turn this TV off. I ain't watching this.
So yeah, I don't know what they're eating or what they're feeding them. Like in high school, going into college, maybe some of that NIL money is helping them run faster. But
it's the cell phones, man. It's all the electricity going through our bodies every day as we're tapping on our phones, just igniting all of the muscles in our bodies that we don't even know about.
So it's like, I mean, we're at the end of this week's episode. I did want to mention. So I think it was around last time they played. Last time was the last show we had. It was right. Yeah, it was. It was right before Super Bowl. I'm a big Carolina fan. They've been playing great. They've been playing fantastic. Past 5 games, they're on a 5-game winning streak. They've won games by like 10+ points. They just blew out. They needed it. They needed it. They're still not in the tournament yet, and they got to play Duke on Saturday. And Duke is beating the brakes off of everybody. So Duke Carolina is the biggest college basketball rivalry. Who do you think is the biggest rivalry in the NFL today, like right now, with it being rival? Because I think Alabama and Auburn are playing Saturday too. I was trying to think. I was like, of course, Bills Chiefs is kind of right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bills Chiefs is kind of the
biggest one.
Because I think if you think about it, it was actually, I think it was at large. Like really, a lot of people tuned into that game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's so many. I think the last several years has been the playoff implications. It's been, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. Are we going to ever get back to the Super Bowl? Can we do it? We're so close. We're such a good team. And I think America has shifted and just basically said, man, we just want the Bills to have some success.
That's crazy.
I feel like the Bills have become America's football team.
What? What bizarre world am I in where all of a sudden Buffalo? Remember when people used to hate when Buffalo got to the Super Bowl? Like there used to be like this.
I wasn't even watching TV during that time.
Around the 3rd or 4th time when they were going to play Dallas again, everyone knew it was going to happen. It's like, come on, man. How many times can Roman Reigns beat down such and such? Like, I mean, we're really doing this. Buffalo got there again.
Roman
and now,
Reigns.
25 years later, everyone's like, come on, Buffalo. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen. You could do the Chiefs for a couple of them. Chiefs Ravens is a big one right now. I was trying to think of the NFC. What's the biggest NFC rivalry? It might be Philly and Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. It's weird not to say Philly Dallas or Dallas Giants or whoever. Who do you think's our biggest rival right now as the Panthers?
Right now, our biggest rival right now, I think I'm not even gonna speak on right now. I'm gonna just speak on the future.
Yeah.
I think the future is going to be Atlanta and Carolina Panthers.
Mark Penix Jr. versus Bryce Young.
Yeah. I think those are the two quarterbacks of the future. And I think we got the better one. And so we are in for a treat if things align properly, in our off seasons. And speaking to our off seasons, earlier we were talking about, needs. We're talking about DBs and receivers and what everybody's talking about online and what the, draft prospects are looking like. My thought process goes like this. If you can get to the quarterback of the opposing team quicker than the receivers get open, that is success.
Yes.
And then if you can protect your quarterback long enough for anybody to get open, you have found success. And
it's so simple.
It's very simple.
It's so easy. It's just
I would really like to get after a quarterback and we can have the top secondary in the league, right? If you have the top secondary in the league with a pass rush, guess how much better that secondary is going to be?
You're Seattle, 2012, 2013. You're the Legion of Boom, pretty much. Because I think it was a high school coach that told me this that I've never forgotten. He was like, it don't really matter how good the wide receivers or the cornerbacks are if the quarterback's sitting on the ground. Like, none of that matters if the quarterback can't get it out of his hands. I'm like, you're right.
Hey, let me say this joke right here. This dad joke. Pink Panther, I love you. So, America hates the Bills. That's why the country is in debt, because we ain't paying them bills. Oh man, that was so good, man. Hey, look, if y'all want to jump on here and hear some dad jokes, I'm here for it.
Yeah, we're here for them. And we do this live, and now again we're exclusively on the Believe YouTube channel. You can still come in like you could before and comment on the YouTube section, and we'll actually respond to your comments, especially if they're good enough for us to comment on, like that one there. I think that's a good place to stop, actually. Shout out to Pink Panther 2124. Shout out to Forest City Kitty. Some of the others that are in here. The audio portion of this will be out a little bit later on this afternoon on the Believe Podcast Network. So you can find it on all major podcast platforms. The video is available on Believe. I believe we'll have it parked on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel too, so you can get to the Believe channel, and you can find it there. We'll have some clips out later on this week. Again, I believe Skylar Callahan will be back with us to discuss draft prospects. We'll start getting into the draft stuff and different positions and things of that sort, because by the time we come back next week, free agency is going to be pretty much done. Like, free agency, literally, they have the legal tampering period, which I never understood, where it's okay for teams to talk to you, but they still can't sign you for like 2 more days or something. So they call it the legal tampering period. Why don't you just call it the get to know you period or something? Because that sounds illegal. This is the legal tampering period. It's okay to talk to them. We just frown upon it. Like, just don't, you know what I mean? Like, so we got that going on.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Right. And then the main part of free agency, the guys we just mentioned earlier in the show, all that's going to get settled in the first 48 hours. Like, literally, the main guys are going to be gone. And by the time we come back, it'll be your day 2, day 3 free agent guys that you pick up for depth and that kind of thing. But the big names will be gone by the time we come back. We kind of see where they landed. And we'll see what the Panthers do, because they've actually got a little change this year to actually do something. So and we see them moving around some money right now to try to do that. I saw they might have to mess with Taylor Moton's contract to free up some more space, but other than that, they're in a pretty good position. It's the first time since I've hosted this show where it's an off season where we can kind of go into it like, hey, we can actually add on to the team. We can actually build the team from what we ended with last year, and we ended on a good note, like on a win and a positive kind of vibe leaving the season, instead of all these questions that we've always had in terms of who's the coach going to be, who's the GM going to be, who's our quarterback. Man, we run the ball. Like, I mean, like, things just random. We don't have a lot of those questions. Now it's like a fun, let's go get this guy or let's go get that guy and put him in here. What's Morgan going to do with this or that? So it's a fun time again. And I'm glad we're going to get a chance to do it this off season. We're going to go ahead and get out of here though. For Stu, for myself.
Again, congratulations, Saquon Barkley, for bringing back the running back position. It was never gone, actually, but you just opened up everybody's eyes, and you've given them some glasses to wear they can look at things with a different perspective.
And maybe teams will start doing it, like you said, the copycat league. So
yeah,
I bet there's gonna be a run on running backs in the draft, like second round or whatever, where people are just gonna be gobbling.
And I can't wait for Christian McCaffrey to get back on that field because boy,
yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You see, Debo got traded to
to Commanders. I ain't worried about him right
now. Or
now.
Fifth or whatever it was. Like what?
It's all about the running backs right now. Listen, let's talk about the running. This the year of the running back.
I want one. I want Hampton or I want Genty. I don't care how they get it. Pair him with
listen. Hold on. Stop. We got Chuba.
I know. I want another one.
Hubbard is a dog, right? We can find out how we gonna get another guy to back up Chuba. That's kind of my mindset.
And shout out to Jonathan Brooks, because I know he's probably not gonna be able to play this upcoming year. So we still don't know exactly what we have with him. We really only saw him for 2 quarters, so we really don't know what we have. And he was coming off of injury before that, so we do have him. He was the highest rated running back in last year's draft, so it's not like we're with a bare cupboard. But it'd be nice if one of these dudes fell in our laps, and we just kind of went from there. But we'll shift our coverage to who the Panthers actually picked up in free agency and turn our focus to the draft. Starting next week. I'm not sure which day we're going to go on, but we should be on probably sometime next week, and we'll hit you guys up with everything there. Make sure you rate and share the podcast anywhere you find it. Subscribe to Believe so you can catch us there, and we should be back next week. So keep an eye out for that here. For Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Believe in Panthers podcast here on the Believe Podcast Networks, presented by Bet Online. Keep pounding.